The late afternoon sun hung low over the city park, casting long shadows from the trees onto the winding path. The leaves, now gold and crimson, rustled softly in the breeze, creating a soundtrack of gentle whispers. Andrew Mercer sat alone on an old wooden bench near the duck pond, elbows resting on his knees, face buried in his hands. His brown coat was wrinkled, the hem slightly torn, and his shoes bore the evidence of too many aimless walks. He wasn't old, not yet 40, but life had managed to wear him down faster than time ever could. It had been exactly 70, 3 days since he had spoken to another human being in a real, meaningful way. Conversations at convenience stores, nods at the apartment building elevator. Those didn't count. They were surface, level interactions, lacking depth or warmth. The truth was, Andrew didn't know how to talk anymore. After his father passed, the final thread connecting him to any sense of family or purpose had snapped. Before that, he had already lost his job and his marriage. Now, every day felt like a dull gray continuation of the last, and the only solace he could find was in the silence of the park. It didn't ask anything from him. It didn't judge. It just let him sit. As the wind picked up slightly, scattering a few leaves at his feet, Andrew sighed and leaned back. He watched a pair of ducks glide across the pond, their movements synchronized like dancers in a quiet ballet. He barely noticed the small figure skipping along the path toward him until a pair of sparkly sneakers came into his view, just below his line of vision. When he looked up, he saw a little girl standing in front of him, hands behind her back, smiling as if she had just discovered a secret. She couldn't have been older than 6 or 7. Her curly brown hair bounced with every movement, and her oversized pink jacket made her look like a walking marshmallow. She had a glitter-covered unicorn backpack and 2 small plastic barrettes clipped unevenly in her hair. "Why are you so sad, mister?" The question came out of nowhere. Direct, disarming, and without hesitation. Andrew blinked. For a second he looked around to see if anyone else had heard her, but it was just the 2 of them there, under the tree near the pond. The little girl tilted her head slightly, as if waiting for an answer she expected to be honest. He swallowed. I'm not sad," he said, though the words felt hollow in his mouth. She frowned. "Yes, you are. Your face looks like my Teddy when he got left outside in the rain." He looked all droopy and wet and lonely. Andrew let out a small laugh, caught completely off guard. It wasn't a bitter laugh or one of sarcasm. It was the kind of laugh that bubbled up from somewhere he thought had gone dormant. "Well, I guess I have been left out in the rain too," he replied, his voice softer now. The little girl stepped closer and unzipped a side pocket of her backpack. After rummaging for a second, she pulled out a tiny sticker. Yellow, shaped like a smiley face, its edges worn as if it had been in there a long time. "This helps," she said, offering it to him. "I gave one to my Teddy and now he's better." He hesitated, but then took it carefully, as if receiving something sacred. He stared at the smiley face for a second before pressing it to the front of his coat. "There," he said. "Do I look happier now?" She grinned and nodded. "A little, but not all the way. You need hot chocolate too." "That's what Mommy says." Andrew smiled, for real this time. "That's good advice." The girl spun in a little circle and looked over her shoulder toward a small coffee cart near the playground. "My mommy's getting coffee. She says I talk too much, so she gave me 5 minutes to let it out." She made air quotes with her fingers, clearly mimicking her mother's tone. "Sounds like you're using your time wisely," Andrew said. "I'm Emma," she announced, plopping down on the bench beside him without asking. "I'm in 1st grade. I hate math but love coloring. I think squirrels should wear sweaters." "What's your name?" "Andrew." She nodded solemnly. "You look like an Andrew." "I'm not sure if that's good or bad." "It's good," she said confidently. Then she leaned closer and whispered, "But you still look kinda sad." Before he could respond, Emma pointed toward the cart. "That's my mommy. Want to meet her? She's pretty and nice and doesn't even yell when I put glitter in her purse." Andrew looked up and followed her gaze. A woman stood near the coffee cart, stylish in a long beige coat, her back turned as she waited for her order. From a distance, she looked graceful, shoulders relaxed, hair neatly tied up, one boot tapping lightly as she scrolled on her phone. "Come on." Emma hopped off the bench, grabbed Andrew's hand without warning and tugged. He almost resisted. Something inside him panicked. But his legs moved anyway, slowly following the girl who had, within 5 minutes, spoken more life into him than anyone had in years. As they approached the woman, she turned slightly, catching sight of Emma and the man beside her. Her eyes locked on Andrew, and for a second, her posture stiffened. Her lips parted slightly, as if she recognized him but wasn't sure yet. And then a spark of realization lit in her eyes. "Andrew?" she asked, her voice full of cautious disbelief. Andrew stopped cold. His heart skipped a beat. "Jessica." The name slipped from his mouth instinctively. He hadn't said it aloud in over 10 years. And yet, there she was, Jessica Lorne, the girl from college. The one he had sat next to for an entire semester, shared notes with, laughed with, stayed up studying with. The one weekend they'd spent together, blurred by wine, laughter, and confessions, had been something he filed away as a memory that wasn't meant to last. After graduation, they had gone their separate ways. No emails, no social media, no goodbyes. He hadn't seen her since. Jessica blinked, then looked down at Emma, who was now smiling proudly, as if she had just orchestrated a grand reunion. "You two know each other?" she asked, slightly guarded. "We went to college together," Andrew said, stunned. "It's been, what, 12 years?" Jessica replied. "Almost 15. There was a long pause. The autumn air seemed to hold its breath as the three of them stood together, bound by coincidence and an invisible thread of the past. Emma looked between them, then pointed to her mother. "Mummy, I gave him the sticker. The smiley one. He was really sad." Jessica's gaze softened slightly. "I see that." Andrew cleared his throat, unsure what to say. She's an amazing little girl." Jessica looked at him carefully. "Yeah, she is." Another pause stretched between them, not uncomfortable, just heavy with the weight of time. "Would you maybe want to join us for hot chocolate?" Jessica finally asked, surprising both herself and Andrew. He nodded, almost too quickly. "Yeah, I'd really like that." And Emma squealed, "Yay, I told you he needed cocoa!" And just like that, the three of them walked away from the coffee cart, the fading sun casting long shadows behind them. One man, one woman, and the little girl who had unknowingly sparked the beginning of something none of them had expected. The cafe was cozy and quiet, tucked into the corner of a brick, paved street just beyond the edge of the park. Inside, fairy lights danced above the windows, and the smell of cinnamon, roasted beans, and warm pastries filled the air. The three of them, Andrew, Jessica, and little Emma, sat around a small round table by the window. 2 mugs of hot chocolate steamed in front of the adults, while Emma eagerly blew on hers, marshmallow fluff sticking to her nose with each sip. Andrew still hadn't quite wrapped his mind around it all. One moment, he'd been alone on a park bench, sinking further into a pit he feared he'd never climb out of. The next, a little girl handed him a sticker, asked one question, and unknowingly reconnected him with a woman he thought he'd never see again. Life rarely gave second chances. Yet here one was, steaming before him in a chipped ceramic mug, smiling through marshmallow foam, and chattering about how unicorns should be allowed to go to school. Jessica watched Emma fondly, but Andrew noticed the flickers of concern in her eyes. She was cautious, guarded in a way he hadn't seen during their college days. Back then, she had been all laughter, spark, and ambition. Now, she carried herself with the grace of a woman who had endured storms. There was something beneath her polished surface, a story she hadn't told yet. "How long have you been back in the city?" Andrew asked, stirring his cocoa slowly. Jessica met his gaze. "Just over a year. I was in Boston for a while, working with a nonprofit legal team. Then I came back after the divorce." He nodded, unsure what to say. "I'm sorry." She gave a tight smile. "Thanks." It wasn't ugly, just inevitable. 2 people drifting apart who were never really meant to hold hands for life. That struck something in him. He knew the feeling all too well. I've had a bit of a rough year myself, Andrew said. Lost my job in January, my dad in April. And I guess I lost myself somewhere along the way. Jessica's eyes softened. I'm sorry, Andrew. That's a lot. He chuckled bitterly. It all hit me at once. Marriage ended last year too. I think I stopped feeling things for a while. Until today. Jessica leaned forward slightly. Because of Emma. He nodded, watching the little girl now absorbed in organizing sugar packets by color. She came up to me like I mattered. Like I wasn't invisible. Jessica smiled, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. She does that. Sees things most people miss. Always has. Andrew hesitated, then glanced at her carefully. She's incredible. You've done an amazing job. The something flickered in Jessica's expression. She looked down at her hands, then back up, locking eyes with him. Andrew, I need to tell you something. Pulse quickened. She exhaled. That weekend, the one we spent together in college. After that, I found out I was pregnant. About 5 weeks later. Andrew froze. Every sound in the cafe seemed to fade, leaving only her voice and the pounding in his chest. I tried to find you. But you'd already left school, your phone was disconnected, and your email bounced. I even contacted the registrar, but they wouldn't give out contact info. I told myself if it was meant to be, I'd find you later. But time passed, and I got scared. I wasn't sure if you'd even want to be a father, so I raised her alone. He stared at her stunned. Emma is mine. Jessica nodded, eyes shining. Yes, she's your daughter, Andrew. The words didn't land gently. They hit like an earthquake. Everything shifted inside him, and suddenly, nothing made sense and everything did, all at once. His heart raced, his hands trembled, and yet there was no anger in him. Only disbelief, shock, and a deep, aching sense of lost time. I don't know what to say, he whispered. I'm sorry, Jessica said. I should have tried harder to find you, but when I finally did last year, your online presence was non-existent. No LinkedIn, no social media. I didn't know how to reach out without disrupting your life. Andrew rubbed his eyes. You didn't disrupt anything, you just woke me up. They sat in silence for a few seconds. Emma looked up, confused by the quiet. Are you two talking about boring adult stuff? Jessica smiled and nodded. Yes, sweetheart. Very boring. Emma rolled her eyes and returned to rearranging sugar. Andrew turned back to Jessica. I missed so much. Her first steps, her first words, birthdays. School. I know, she said gently. And I'm not asking for anything. I don't expect you to suddenly become a dad overnight. I just thought you had a right to know. He shook his head. No, I want to know. Everything. What she likes, what makes her laugh, how she dances when no one's watching. I want to be there. If you'll let me. Jessica studied him. There was no desperation in his voice, only sincerity. His eyes weren't pleading. They were open. For the first time in years, she saw the same man she once trusted. Only older, scarred maybe, but real. She loves animals. Jessica began softly. Especially foxes. Thinks they're secret agents. She hates broccoli, but will eat anything if it's shaped like a dinosaur. And she's obsessed with space. Wants to be an astronaut who also makes cupcakes. Andrew laughed, a tear slipping down his cheek. He didn't wipe it. He didn't need to. I'd like to come by sometimes, he said. If that's okay. Start slow. Maybe pick her up from school once in a while. Go to the science museum. Jessica nodded. We can figure it out. One step at a time. Just then, Emma tapped Andrew on the arm. Hey, mister. Yes. If you're gonna hang out with us more, you should know I don't like scary movies. I snore when I nap, and I always get the last cookie deal. He smiled, his chest tightening with a joy he hadn't felt in years. Deal. She held out her pinky. He linked his with hers and felt a warmth spread through him that had nothing to do with the cocoa. Jessica looked at him with a softness that hadn't been there earlier. You really didn't know, did you? He shook his head. Not a clue. But I'm glad I do now. As the evening deepened and the cafe began to empty, the three of them lingered. Emma told stories. Andrew listened like a man memorizing every syllable. And Jessica, for the first time in years, felt like maybe something broken had found a way to heal. Later, outside under the streetlights, Emma climbed onto Andrew's shoulders for the short walk back to their car. Jessica watched them from behind, her heart full of wonder and fear. Life didn't always offer perfect beginnings. But sometimes, if you were lucky, it offered unexpected new chapters. And for Andrew, it all began with one small question from a little girl who saw past his silence and into his soul. "Why are you so sad, mister?" He wasn't anymore.